What's going on, everyone? It's Adrian from Draft Time, and today in this video, I'm gonna go over my picks for tonight, which is Halloween night. We have a three-game slate. We got the Heat at the Hawks, the Nuggets at the Pelicans, and then you got the Spurs at the Clippers. So I'm gonna go over some picks, some value guys. Also go over a few sleepers. Also, at the end of the video, I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys the lineup for tonight using the lineup optimizer that you can access on drafttime.com. But first, before I do any of that, I kind of want to recap last night because last night we had a huge slate last night, and we tripled up on both FanDuel and DraftKings just by using the default lineup that the optimizer spits out. And on FanDuel, picked up Harden and Thomas Bryant. Thomas Bryant was a huge pickup. He was only 3.2% owned, and he ended up putting 48.9 points up. Harden put up 75.1. He had that huge night, 59 points. When I first saw that box score, 159 to 158, I thought that game went into overtime, but that was the score in regulation, so that was a crazy game. Another big pickup last night was Mike Conley. Ended up putting up 41.7 points. It was by far his best game of the season, and he was only $6,300. Another guy that was a big pickup was Nerlens Noel, because right before lock, we got the news that Steven Adams was going to be out. So, and it ended up picking up Nerlens Noel, and he was priced at only $3,800, but he was 37.5% owned. I guess a lot of people heard the news about Steven Adams, but still a huge pickup. Great value guy to have. On DraftKings, the default lineup picked up Marcus Smart, because what's his name was out. Jaylen Brown was out. Then it ended up picking up Devin Booker, which was a pretty good pickup. It also had Thomas Bryant, Harden, and Nerlens Noel, just like the FanDuel lineup. But this lineup actually picked up Cat, and Cat got ejected, only put up 28 points, and we still tripled up with this lineup. So overall, a good night. And so far, I mean, if you've been going strictly off the default lineups by using the optimizer, you would be 7 for 9 in cashing in the main tournaments on FanDuel, and on DraftKings you would be 6 for 9. So those are pretty good odds. I'll take those odds any day. But anyways, let's get to tonight. So first of all, who do I like tonight? Well, I think Jokic is a no-brainer tonight. We have him projected to put up 50 points on FanDuel, 52 points on DraftKings, and he's priced at only 10,400 on FanDuel and 10,000 on DraftKings. And going up against the Pelicans defense, they have by far one of the worst defenses so far this year. They give up the most points. They're one of the worst teams as far as defensive rating. Favors is doubtful, so it's looking like Favors is not going to play. So I think Jokic is going to have a field day against the Pelican big men. I doubt you're going to see much of Jackson Hayes, even though he played pretty decent in the previous game in the minutes that he was on the court. He's just too little, too skinny to play against Jokic, and I don't think Okafor or Melli could really guard him. So I think Jokic is a must-have tonight. Another one of my picks for tonight is going to be Jabari Parker. He's only 4,800 on FanDuel and 4,300 on DraftKings. We have him projected to put up 24 fantasy points on FanDuel and 25 on DraftKings. Last game against the Heat, which was their last game, he ended up scoring like around 20 fantasy points, but he was one of the only few guys who could who could score, who could go and get a bucket for himself. Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter continue to look like lost puppies out there. And I know John Collins had a big game last game, but he was on fire from three last game. I don't expect that to continue this game against the same team. I really think they don't have a lot of scoring options with Trae Young out. So I can expect Jabari Parker to have a bigger role in that offense this game. And my last pick for tonight is DeMar DeRozan. Now he's $7,800 on FanDuel and he's $7,100 on FanDuel. We projected him to score 37 on both FanDuel and DraftKings, And, I know he's going up against the Clippers and Kawhi Leonard, but I don't think he's going to see Kawhi Leonard, all game. There's not a lot of options at shooting guard. Now, I know Drew Holiday is playing tonight, but he is significantly more expensive. I think he's $8,800 on FanDuel. So I definitely think that DeRozan's a better value play. Also, Drew Holiday is going against the Nuggets defense, who is a pretty good defense. They're very underrated defensively. So I'd rather go with DeRozan out of the two of them. Now, he started off bad in his first game. I believe he only had like 24 or so fantasy points, but his previous two games, he's done a lot better. He dropped 43 and 36. So I think at 37 projected fantasy points, that's not going to be difficult for him to get, and he also has some upside. Now, sleepers for tonight. Now, this is a deep sleeper, okay, with decent upside but a lot of downside because he might not even play that many minutes. But James Johnson should be returning for the Heat tonight. And I forgot to mention this earlier. Justice Winslow is questionable for tonight. So if he does end up not playing, obviously a lot of guys on the Heat, their value is going to go up. Jimmy Butler is going to end up having a lot more value. Tyler Hero is going to end up having better value. Kendrick Nunn. So that's something that you need to pay attention to. But if Justice Winslow misses, a deep sleeper is going to be James Johnson. They play Justice a lot at the 4 or like a point 4. So if Justice is out, someone's going to have to take those minutes, and that's going to end up being James Johnson. Guys like Kelly Olynyk and Myers Leonard, they've struggled defensively against guys like John Collins. So I wouldn't be surprised if James Johnson gets a decent amount of minutes. He's 4,100 on FanDuel and he's 3,300 on DraftKings. So he's definitely more valuable on DraftKings, but he definitely has a lot of upside and shouldn't be owned too much in either of those sites. Another deep sleeper is Jahlil Okafor. He started off pretty bad last game. Started off with I think 3 or 4 turnovers in the fourth quarter, or actually in the first quarter, and that ended up they ended up taking him out of the game probably because of those turnovers. He didn't get that much of a chance to play, but I think going against Jokic, they don't have too many bodies that they could put on him with Derek Favors out. So Jahlil Okafor, who's priced pretty cheap on both FanDuel and DraftKings, I think has some sleeper potential, more so in DraftKings, because I think on FanDuel at that center spot, it's just I don't see any other guys you could take at center besides Jokic. But on DraftKings, he definitely has more value on DraftKings because you could pick up him and Jokic. So definitely has some sleeper potential there. And one more guy who has some sleeper potential is Kevin Huerter. He's been on a minutes restriction. His minutes restriction went up from 20 to 25 minutes this game. Like I was saying earlier, Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter, they look like a bunch of lost puppies out there. They don't look very good. Kevin Huerter is a guy who could come off the bench and give you some buckets, give you some 3-pointers. So he definitely has some sleeper potential. So those are my picks and my sleepers for tonight. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and run the lineup optimizer and give you the default lineups. Now this is very likely to change, especially if Justice Winslow ends up not playing. It's probably going to pick up some more guys from the Heat. But let's go ahead and run the optimizer now and see what it spits out. So for FanDuel, we got Lonzo Ball, Jamal Murray, Bembry DeRozan, Cam Reddish, DeAndre Hunter, Jabari Parker, LaMarcus Aldridge, and Nikola Jokic. Now, I know I said I'm not too big of fans of Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter, especially since it's picking up 4 Hawks. It's picking up Bembry, Cam Reddish, Hunter, and Jabari Parker. So this lineup here definitely is one of those that you could enter into your cash games, because one of those guys has to go off, one, maybe 2 of those guys, and it definitely has some value because they're priced in the 4,000s. But I wouldn't, I don't expect this lineup to have a very huge upside because, the chances are very slim that all 4 of those Hawks players end up having huge games. So, you can enter it into your GPPs, but it's not going to be one of those lineup that, scores 4x or 10x your bet. So definitely want to consider limiting your Hawks in your GPP lineups. Now let's go ahead and oh, and by the way, you could do that. You could come over here to max players from one team, and you could change that to three, maybe even two if you want. I suggest for a 3-game slate, if you're entering it into a GPP, to change that to three, not to change it to four, or not to change it to two. In the bigger slates, a lot of the time I change that to two, but in a slate like a 3-game slate, if you're trying to get a lineup with a lot of upside, I would suggest changing that to three. But let's go ahead and let's change the site to DraftKings, and let's go ahead and hit generate lineups. And you got Bembry, Lou Williams, Jamal Murray, DeMar DeRozan, JaMychal Green, Jabari Parker, LaMarcus Aldridge, who is pretty good value on DraftKings. He's only 7,200 on DraftKings, and we have him projected to score 40 fantasy points. And then obviously you got Jokic. So those are the lineups. Those are our picks for tonight. I look forward to hearing from you guys, and good luck tonight.